Hey everyone, it is the podcast show starring Stephen and Winston. I'm Stephen.
I'm Winston. Welcome to the show.
And this is the flagship podcast of electric mobility.
Oh, you mean those seniors that drive on the sidewalk?
No. We're talking about electric cars here. So Stay tuned and we're going to be ripping this topic apart because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, carry on.
I think you have something to ask me.
Well, yeah. So I heard that you drove across Canada in the winter. Is there a reason why? I heard that you're gonna use up all your winter tires and all sorts. But tell me your experience. What happened?
Well, it's like right now, as it stands, it's like the drivable part of the winter. So it wasn't too super cold. Stuff is starting to there's still snowstorms and everything like that. Like today on the Coquihalla, it's like there's winter. There's a blizzard happening right now, so it's still winter in Canada. But what I did was I just wanted to take my vehicle out there, and I wanted to, just for my own personal information, I just wanted to see how it would do in the winter. So I left my kids at home and my family at home, and I actually drove from Coquitlam, BC, which is where I live, all the way out to Calgary, Alberta. And over that trip, I drove over the Canadian Rockies. I drove through Banff National Park, which I believe you're going to be going there and showing off your Canada Goose.
That's right. Easter break, I'm going. Yeah, so April, I'm heading up there. But
it's going to be nice.
How many miles you covered?
Well, since we're metric
kilometers
here in the Commonwealth, I covered 22,028.3 kilometers from there and back.
Wow. Okay. So let me ask you a question about horsepower, right? So with an electric vehicle and versus a gasoline vehicle, I have to say gasoline vehicle. Petrol vehicle. And because the power output versus electric, and then especially across winter, using winter tires, and you're going across all, the mountains and stuff, is there a real difference in terms of power? Do you feel that difference? Because I think people want to know about that, right?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, and it's something like I own two vehicles that are electric, but one's a plug-in hybrid, which means that it has a limited electric range, but it uses primarily a gas engine for anything above that electric range. And I have a full electric vehicle, which was the vehicle that I took from Coquitlam to Calgary. Now, the nice thing about electric vehicles is the fact that, and especially when you're going through the mountains, it doesn't require oxygen to burn anything.
Okay.
So what that means is that if you have 200 horsepower in two vehicles, one is gas and one's electric, the gas vehicle will at some point lose horsepower because of the elevation change. The electric vehicle doesn't stop.
And also because
you get all 200 horses.
Right, so it's colder, so your engine needs to warm up, right? That's right.
That's partially it. The cold actually impacts an electric vehicle a little bit more because now it has to turn on battery management to keep the battery at optimum temperature, but it will still give you 200 horsepower no matter what. So I'll give you a good example, and this is even with my plug-in hybrid, which is partially electric. When you're going up mountain passes and you're trying to pass people, what happens is that in some of these mountain passes, and this is on some of the longer straights, you're doing 120, and that's the speed limit. Most cars will fall back, especially when they get to the steeper part, because they simply can't, the foot's still on the same part of the accelerator, but it won't go any faster because it has no oxygen. An electric vehicle will just fly straight past. And this is on any vehicle, right? It doesn't matter if it's a turbocharged. Well, turbocharged a little bit less of an issue, but still an issue because it still requires oxygen. But an electric vehicle just doesn't stop. It will just keep going. So if you have, and I use this a lot on long trips, if you have adaptive cruise control turned on your vehicle, and you set it to 110, 120, it will always do that speed. It won't slow down. It'll keep going. It'll always be that horsepower.
I understand because I've driven a few times gasoline cars. When you're going uphill, there's a stretch of highway over the, where there's a mountain, whatever, but it goes up in a steep, at an incline.
Yes.
So when it goes on the incline, I actually feel the car actually slow down because, again,
that's right.
You need to work more, need to burn petrol or gas more and so on. So what you're saying with an electric vehicle, there's no slowdown. It keeps on going at that cruise control speed that you set, right?
You got it. It doesn't do that
interesting.
because it's not losing power. It doesn't rely on oxygen to actually make that chemical reaction to drive the motors. It's already done the chemical reaction in receiving the electricity into the battery pack that's driving the propulsion
The motor. Oh, right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, cool.
So it's a really interesting change in the way that we think about performance, because it is anywhere where there's low air or low oxygen, EVs dominate.
Yeah.
And they already dominate because of the torque. I mean, off the line, that's the kind of the downside, is that you might use up a few more tires
Yeah.
because you're peeling out. And my snow tires have been fantastic. Like I use Nokian Nordic winter snow tires. I know in the UK, a winter tire is technically our all season tire.
Yeah, well, nobody actually changed tires in the UK. They can't be bothered.
Yeah.
They just go with the tires.
Right.
And they'll just ride and drive until it actually wears down, and they'll just change tires. They don't really care about winter tires and anything. They might change to the wet tires, I guess, because it rains a lot. So
Yeah.
they'll give you a choice between performance tires or your regular tires. They'll go for the regular tires. The performance tires are way too expensive, especially with the
They wear out.
larger rim tires that you can get, right? So okay,
That's right.
Okay.
And also in the UK, I think the roads and the lanes are quite narrow, and sometimes they don't get repaired as quickly as possible. So having the smaller wheels with the fatter tires is actually a advantage, because it cushions you, and that's not something that is specific to just the UK. In Canada, we call it the pothole season. It's our 5th season, where all the potholes are everywhere.
Yeah, I noticed. I'm just driving along here where I actually live, across, in Richmond, and
Yeah.
potholes. I wouldn't have thought I'll see potholes. I see loads of them in the UK, right?
Yeah.
But
No,
here,
they're a
I thought,
thing.
hey, it's like a few. And the good thing about this, though, the potholes in the UK, you complain to the government or the transit people, the local government, and they might fix it up in about a month's time. But here, usually within 2 weeks, and it's done, which is quite nice,
Yeah, in the cities it's fine, but when the highway washes away like it did on the Coquihalla, that's going to take a little bit longer, right? And that's a freak of nature, and a lot of people were affected by that, especially a lot of people that live in those areas. I mean, they've been cut off from basically supplies and whatnot for a little while, as they were trying to figure out how to get people routed through the trucks and everything like that. So, I mean, it's a freak of nature. It hopefully doesn't happen again, but hopefully we'll be much more prepared the next time, because it affects everyone. It affects everyone.
One of the questions a lot of people ask is, with electric vehicle, what's your experience in terms of like savings, in terms of actually having it to charge certain amounts of, the kilometers that you've used? Tell me the whole process. I mean, what your experience is. How are you feeling?
Well, one of the things that drove me towards buying an electric vehicle was the fact that there was a significant savings in gas, because gas prices inevitably they go up. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, it was actually 69 cents Canadian.
What?
That's a long time ago, right? And now, and a good deal for gas nowadays is like $1.39. Now it's $2. It's gone up because of the conflict in Ukraine and Russia, but that's a bit of a smokescreen for what's actually happening around the world right now, because it's actually the cartel that controls the price of oil. Any uncertainty will drive up the price of oil, and because it's a global commodity, things happen. So I don't like the fact that gas goes up, because everyone's stuff goes up in price, because we rely on trucks and everything to transport things.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Right? I mean, it's global, it's national, it affects everyone, right? So even as an EV driver, I'm affected as well too. But what I don't get affected by is the fact that I don't need to go to the gas station to charge up. So I charge up at home. We do have the plug-in hybrid, which uses gas sometimes, but in reality, it only needs to fill up like once a month and maybe twice, and it drives almost equal amounts as I do. But the maintenance costs of that vehicle, because it's actually partially a gas vehicle, are way higher than with an electric vehicle.
Yeah.
And how I arrived at getting an electric vehicle was actually quite simple. We purchased the plug-in hybrid in 2019, and that was when it was very difficult to get an electric vehicle because there were so few out there. Like Hyundai and Kia were just bringing out the Kona EV, which was one of their first EVs out in the market. Teslas are everywhere, but you would be on a waiting list for that particular vehicle for a year. So I just stopped looking. When I found a plug-in hybrid, I figured, hey, 48 kilometers, that's enough for me to get back and forth from work. And you know what? The average commute is around that. I mean, 25 kilometers there and back, that should cover you, right? Well, I eventually figured out that, you know what? We're blowing way past 48 kilometers. We regularly drive more than that because we've got the children, we've got to take them back and forth from school, finding a charger somewhere, that's just a pain in the butt. So 6 months later, I bought my first full EV, which was a Chevy Bolt.
Oh, okay.
Which is a Opel Ampera E in the UK.
Okay, Opel, yeah.
Yeah. So
Opel, yeah.
So that vehicle had under 400 kilometers of range. It was fun to drive. It goes 0 to 60 in less than 6 seconds. And it has 200 horsepower. And it's bigger on the outside than looking in.
Okay.
It's bigger. Sorry, it's like a TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside than outside. My bad.
So that's another question. So if you were a single driver, of course, weight consideration, a single person weighs a lot less than having a whole family. So have you noticed any performance decrease with a whole, with the car's fully loaded with 5 people versus 1 person?
Well, if you have 5 people, obviously weight's going to be a factor, as with anything, right? I mean, even the gas vehicle becomes less efficient when you're loaded down. So in my experience, you do lose a little bit of range when you're going up the mountain. When you're going down, it's a lot of fun. When you're in flat, you've already accelerated that load, so you're just keeping it in motion most of the time.
Right.
And you could also use some hyper-miling, like techniques like drafting behind the truck, like just to kind of get your range up as well too. So, I mean, but most importantly, a lot of people, one of the things that a lot of people forget to do is just to top up their air pressure. I mean, flat tires lose a lot of range
I heard
on any vehicle, right?
Yeah, I heard that. It affects performance,
Yeah, like it's real.
Okay.
Definitely. Because you're not getting the most traction, you're destroying your tires.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about the range? You said the range. Do you actually need to plan your trip? Just say if you're driving, say, 200 to 300 kilometers to whatever next city, do you actually need to plan the charging points just in case, or what do you think? How would one go about it?
It's a little bit more of a plan thing right now, mainly because not a lot of people know that there are EV chargers along the way. Some are kind of tucked away and everything like that. But most vehicles these days, especially the modern ones with the infotainment system, they will tell you where the closest EV charging stations are, and you can even filter them from slower level 2 chargers all the way to 3. And again, let me just let everyone know that the different levels mean the speed of charging. So a level 1 charger would be the charger that comes with the vehicle from the factory. That would be the emergency or the granny charger that you would plug into a regular 120 volt socket. Okay. That would be what you would use to top off your vehicle. That would be what you would use to maybe when you get to a relative's house, hey, can I plug in for a little bit? That would be the charger that you would take with you. So that's the emergency charger.
How long?
It depends. That charger is only good for maybe 1 to 2 kilowatt at most an hour. So if you have a 64 kilowatt battery, it could take quite some time, 30 hours, right?
30 hours.
So again, that's why it's a granny charger. That's why it's not the charger that you rely on.
Okay.
For most people that have a high capacity, long range EV, you should be charging on the level 2 charger. And most malls, apartment buildings these days have some zoning built into them that allow for level 2 chargers to be placed in those places, typically at the front of the mall or close to the entrances, which is great. And those have hourly charges depending on the mall, or it could be free depending on your strata. And again, your mileage may vary on that. And those chargers will give you up around, I think, anywhere between 7.6 let's just say 6 to 11 kilowatt hour.
Okay.
So if you have a 64 kilowatt hour battery, that would be 5 to 6 hours, I believe.
But you're never going to fully charge on that rate. For example, you go to a shopping mall, probably spend 2 hours max. Spend 2 hours.
Yep.
They'll give you more than say a third capacity anyway, right? So
a third to half, depending on how low you are. And again, always be charging, right? I mean, if you go to the mall once or twice a week and you don't cover the entire range of your battery, you'll be topped up in no time, right? It's just it just depends on how often you charge and how much you use. And quite often I tell people that are considering an EV purchase is like, okay, well, how often do you think you could charge? And also what actual range do you need throughout the week? Because if you're only driving like 5 to 10 kilometers each way, and that's for 5 days of the week, you've only done what, like 10 kilometers for 5 days? That's 50 kilometers. If the battery goes up to 400 kilometers and you charge once at the mall, aren't you topped up already? Right? I mean, you have to think about it that way.
And you mentioned, is that a level 3 charger as well? Is there does it exist?
That's right.
It does exist.
Level 3 chargers are basically, you bet. Level 3 chargers are basically the fastest chargers out there. They come in varieties of 50 kilowatt, which is pretty standard for BC Hydro chargers, which are strewn throughout the province. And this is a kind of a pilot project from our provincial utility to help us adopt charging, because it's in their best interest to provide electric services. They're supplying the electricity for the vehicles, right? So this kind of pilot project just places chargers along certain routes so that we have that coverage of 200 kilometers, there's a stop, right? Just like gas stations, even 20 years ago in BC, some of the routes didn't actually have a gas station for further than what a vehicle could actually travel.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, like it happens in some of the smaller communities, but I think that if you compare a graph of the pace of electric charging stations versus gas stations growth over the last few years since EVs were a thing, the EV chargers have grown faster than gas stations. The only thing that sucks is that I can't get snacks, and some of them, you know, like the bathrooms aren't that great.
Well, actually, Stephen, there's actually a charger. I'm not sure what level it is, probably level 2, outside the Oval. So
yes,
you know,
that's
the
right.
Oval Olympic Stadium they have there. Well, it's actually one free of charge. You could just go there and drive. There's one charging point. But yeah, I guess I've seen people actually drive there and just
level 2.
Oh, level 2, yeah.
Level
2, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I think those are level 2. So the level 3, basically, 50 kilowatt is basically the bare minimum for something to be decent. BC Hydro chargers are that. They go upwards of 90 kilowatt, 150, 350.
Oh, wow. So it's really fast charge, right?
It can be really fast, but that is now. The thing that and this is something that, you know, I'm guilty of. We call the charger that station. Technically speaking, the charger is in the vehicle. That's just a hose with an interface. So it's basically a glorified extension cord for the utility, right? So depending on your vehicle, the charger inside your vehicle dictates how much charge it can take. And typically it's like a fan curve. It depending on how much demand there is for electricity or how hot the PC system is, the curve will fall off and to protect the battery. So on my vehicle, the one that I drive, which is a Nero EV, its max speed is 77 to 79 kilowatt charge. So I could go to a 150. I would only get 77 to 79 out of that.
All right. So it doesn't matter if it's a 300, you're still getting 77 max.
That's right, because the charger inside my vehicle demands what it takes from the hose.
That's the maximum charge that you can get at one time.
On my vehicle.
So other vehicles, just say a high-end Tesla, Plaid, whatever.
Taycan.
Probably have a bigger, faster charger inside the car, right? So they probably take up to 200, 300, whatever. Okay, so it all depends on the car, internals.
All depends on the vehicle.
Okay.
But in my vehicle, to give everyone kind of a reference, to get from 20% to 80%, and usually I leave a buffer of 15 to 20%, it takes about 45 minutes to get there.
Oh, okay.
But think about it this way. If I'm charging, I'm doing something completely different at the same time. I don't like wasting my time at a charging station. I don't know about other users, but if I've stopped at a charger, I've gone to the bathroom. If I've stopped at a charger, I'm having lunch. If I've stopped at a charger, I'm shopping.
Yeah. That's what I probably want to. Yeah.
Exactly, because we don't really want to stop, right? And if you think about how many times that, when we're pumping gas, we're out there for 5 minutes, kind of topping off and everything like that. We're in the cold. I'd rather be somewhere else, like even for those 5 minutes. I just don't want to be inconvenienced.
Here's an interesting question. So, imagine the electric vehicle, you parked it, and for example, you go on holiday. You're away for 2 weeks, okay? So the car hasn't been charged or just left the car on its own. You come back after 2 weeks, what happens? What happens? Does that still continue? Do you need to recharge? Do you need to... Is there something like, what do you need to do if you're going away for 2 weeks on vacation?
A modern battery management system will actually just keep the vehicle, it'll keep the battery at optimum conditions. You might lose a couple percent, but it's so minimal that you could take off for a month, 2 weeks. It doesesn't matter. When you come back, the car will start. But we're not talking about 0% battery. Unless you've left it in a refrigerator, in a deep freeze at negative 50 for a month, it's going to start. As long as there's a charge on that battery, it will roll over. It's not like it's not like a gas vehicle where if it's too cold, it won't start because there's no spark. You can't make it go because the engine block's too cold. An electric vehicle is basically like, hey, positive, negative, battery, charge, good, roll.
Yeah,
right?
That's good. Because I've had experiences, or I've heard of experiences of people actually just leaving their gasoline cars out in the garage or parking lot.
Yeah.
And for about a month, because they're taking another car, for example, or they're using another car, and they go back to the original car and it wouldn't start up.
That's right, because the 12-volt battery has not been charged for a month. So if a 12-volt battery has not been charged for a month, we have to look at, why that happened. Is the battery too old? I mean, that could also be a thing as well, too. Maybe it's 3-4 years old and it just doesn't want to keep your car going anymore. It just quits over a certain number of hours. You just didn't know about it because you drive it every day. So optimal battery health on an EV and also on a regular gas vehicle is of utmost importance because it's what starts the vehicle. There's a 12-volt battery inside an EV and it's still required to start the vehicle. The only difference is that in an EV, a 12-volt battery is actually charged by the main battery periodically to keep it going. And that's partially why an EV will lose a little bit of charge, even though you topped it up to 100% and you left it for a month. It's just simply keeping that 12-volt ready to go for you.
Okay. So with so many electric vehicles, brands are up and coming and stuff like that. So how many major players are out there now, right there?
Oh, gosh. You know what? I would say that the top five would be, your Tesla, your GM, your Ford, your VW, Kia, Hyundai. Those are your top five right now, right?
I see Teslas everywhere. They're everywhere.
You do.
Yeah.
They're the innovator, right? You have to give props where props are due. Tesla built a network of chargers that people can use for their products that makes it convenient for them to charge their vehicles to make sure that they're ready to go. Chances of unless it's gross negligence, a Tesla should not run out of charge. You should not have to rescue one. But it does happen. And, to be perfectly honest, the people that let a Tesla run out of charge are probably the same people that don't fill up their vehicles as well, too. I think they're one and the same, right? Because, let's be perfectly honest. A Tesla is warning you and yelling at you with alarms and buzzers and bells to charge your vehicle because you are too far away from the charge. It's already told you that. If you're not going to listen, there's no point, right? So it's a human factor that makes the product... That's its weakness is humans, right? If there was a way for full self-driving to take you there without you even it forces you to go because it's going to run out of power.
Yeah,
that would probably be better, right? So there's always a human factor. I've run out of gas in my gas vehicle as well too because I played the stupid game of yellow light roulette. I think I've got another 10 kilometers there. I think. I'm guilty. That's a human thing, right? It has nothing to do with the vehicle.
Yeah.
It's just it's stupid humans.
Yeah. So with gasoline cars, that indicator isn't that accurate?
No, it's not.
But with a battery, because it's electronically controlled and everything, you can actually see the amount in percentage, say, and that's fairly accurate, and it'll give you that mileage range, and then you can then plan to top up whatever or charge up whatever you need to go. Again, I think one of the main things is having enough charging points throughout the city if you live in the city area.
Yes.
Long distance driving, you need to really plan, I think. So
you plan a little bit, you have to plan. So
okay,
I mean, that's with anything.
So going back to the manufacturers, so you mentioned Tesla, GM, Ford are starting doing it, and VW. I've seen some of the ID4s are really nice. I like them. And what are the brands?
Oh, well, we've also got other brands out there. Like I drive a Kia, right? But Kia is also Hyundai. It's also Genesis. So you kind of got you've also got the luxury brand. You've got the two siblings. They're competing with technology. Like right now, the hottest, one of the hottest EVs out there for most people that don't drive a Tesla are going to be the Kia EV6, which is a fantastic station wagon style. You call that in the UK. So that's what that looks like. There's also the Ioniq 5, which is the Hyundai version of it, and then there is the GV60, which is like a decked out luxury version of both of those vehicles fused together. That one has like the crystal ball that turns into your shifter that flips around.
Oh, okay.
It's over the top, right? It even has a boost mode that will give you like crazy acceleration.
Yeah. And what about Toyota? Where are they now?
Well, Toyota is... See, this is the interesting thing. Toyota and Subaru have been partnering on a lot of things, mainly on platforms that, like either Toyota doesn't want to make or Subaru wants it, but they don't have a partner. So we saw that with the BRZ, which is like the AE, the spiritual successor to the AE86, the initial D car, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right? So those are the partnerships they got together on. Now, the next partnership that they've kind of put together is on EVs. So right now, Subaru has called the Solterra. That's their kind of station wagon. It's weird. It's 2-wheel drive, which is kind of odd.
Yeah, actually 4-wheel drive.
4-wheel drive is their bread and butter, but yet they've brought out this vehicle. And Toyota, the same. They've got their own version of it. They look almost identical if you really look at it. Same as the BRZ and the FT86 is what the new name is, I think, for their sports saloon. But that it's not saloon; it's a hatchback. No, it's a two-door coupe. It's a coupe.
Yeah, coupe.
Right.
Yeah.
So and the funny part is that you would think that Toyota would be doing all the engineering for this particular vehicle, for their first true EV. They are not. It's actually coming from a Chinese company called BYD.
Oh, BYD. Yeah, I heard of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're a publicly traded company in China. They have lots of different designs, and they also supply in the Chinese domestic market. But that vehicle is a Chinese rebranded vehicle with their like their interface, their software, and everything like that. It blows my mind because here is Toyota, innovator.
Yeah, they're one of the biggest, like 5-6 years ago, they were one of the biggest car manufacturers.
And their vehicles last forever, right? They fall apart.
Yeah.
They're still in the Middle East, like carrying people around. Toyota pickup trucks, right?
Yeah.
And I just can't fathom why they would do that. And the reason I think is because Toyota themselves were so heavily involved in hydrogen.
Oh,
that it's kind of like, okay, we've staked ourselves crypto. We staked ourselves in hydrogen. Okay, now what do we do? Oh no, the whole world has changed to electric. Now what do we do? It would be dishonorable to throw away this partnership, right? Because they're Japanese. So what do they do about it? Well, they've invested too long in this other technology. Now they have to catch up, and they're catching up through the technology of a partner.
Yeah. Hydro. That was one thing that was in competition with the electric vehicles, the hydrogen. But I've always thought hydrogen, man. Imagine having a full tank of hydrogen in the car.
It's so compressed. Hydrogen bomb anyone?
It can explode anytime. You seen those Fast and Furious with the NOS? You just and you open a NOS canister.
Oh my God.
And it's shoo.
Even NOS is volatile, and we've seen that it is volatile, right? It is
man. It's crazy, man. Explosions.
So imagine that underneath your seat.
I know.
It's kind of scary. So, and they weren't the only player. Hyundai has their Nexo, which is also a hydrogen-powered car. Both their Prius and their Nexo are actually in the British Columbia Lower Mainland testing because we have hydrogen filling stations. So they do have test vehicles out there. But I don't think this is the right technology for passenger vehicles because it's, quite frankly, it's too impractical. I think it would be better for long-haul trucking. And there's applications for it. Some people will disagree because there's a lot of resources involved in compressing and processing.
It is a
hydrogen.
lot more. Having to produce hydrogen the process is complex and very expensive. So
that's right. It's also regulated as well too because you can make explosives with it.
That's true. What happened to Mazda? Are they going on? I haven't heard of anything that they're producing.
Well, Mazda is really weird. They have excellent internal combustion engine vehicles. They handle really well. But their first EV is almost like they didn't even try. They call it the MX-30, right? This is their only EV. It's a starting price.
Sounds impressive.
It's not impressive. It's $42,000. And guess what? It has 161 kilometers of range. That's less than an e-Golf. That's almost 5 years. It's over 5 years old, right? 2017 e-Golf it has more range than this thing. A Chevy Bolt has more range than this thing, and you can buy either vehicle on the used market for $30,000-ish before the whole shortage, right? So you're trying to charge me $42,000 for a vehicle that has a very slow charger on board. It's 50 kilowatt. That's slow.
That's not all. And you get a really low mileage in range.
161 kilometers in this day and age, even as a runabout. If it was half that price, I could see there being some significant uptake.
Maybe some.
161 kilometers for most people is plenty. Completely eco-friendly, right?
But I've seen some BMWs though they're really good, but they're also expensive. But they're actually nice designed cars, right?
You know what? I would have to say that BMW is one of, and I'm kind of a sucker for this, is that I do like vehicles that are understated, regardless of the drivetrain that they have. Like, look at a BMW EV and look at a regular gas-powered BMW. They almost look the same. You couldn't tell them apart except for the badging. Same with Audi. The e-tron looks like a regular Audi. And I feel that that's actually kind of the way to go. Because the designs on some of these vehicles, like Rivian, that truck doesn't look like anything on the market, and it's polarizing. Truck buyers, the people that are traditionally going to buy a Dodge or a Ford F-150, I don't think a lot of those people like the look. It's really comical the way it looks compared to an F-150 or a Dodge Ram. Yeah. So, it's such a developing market, but I think the BMW has some great stuff, but I love what Mercedes is doing.
Yeah. They're really nice cars.
They're fantastic. That EQS, and this is kind of the name of the game. They're taking, I think it's a 100 kilowatt hour battery, and they've made that vehicle so efficient that it can run at 10 kilowatt hour at regular speeds and almost go up to 1,000 kilometers. And that's regular driving.
What, 1,000 kilometer range?
It's up to a 1,000 kilometer range. It's non-tested because they still have to get through EPA testing and everything like that. But almost 1,000 kilometers. You think about how many vehicles, actual gas vehicles on the road that can do that? Very few.
But the pricing of these cars are quite expensive, what I've seen. And but like 2-3 years ago, when people were buying Teslas, they had the government subsidies, right, to the rebate and stuff like that. But now the rebates all finished. We're seeing the true price of these electric vehicles, and they're not cheap. But
they're not cheap.
Over the next 5 to 10 years, if you do own one, you will save a lot in terms of gas prices, I think. That's my
That's a
take on it.
potentially thing, right? I mean, that's a good take on it, because depending on how much you drive, you might even be able to completely pay for the monthly payments on the vehicle. I'm not saying that you're going to be able to afford a $150,000 Mercedes EQS, but in Canada, the subsidies here are $55,000 and below. You're eligible for a $3,000 in BC, $3,000 provincial credit, and a $2,500 credit and a $5,000 federal credit. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Well, we're talking about savings. We need some sponsors for the show. Yeah.
Oh, please help us.
All right. So, if you're a sponsor, a potential sponsor, please contact us. And of course, we welcome all sorts of donations and, of course, a sponsorship. And of course, it will help us run the show. And to you viewers out there, if you have any comments, hit us an email. It's our podcast show@gmail.com. And you can always share the content and follow us and give us a like. So on.
That's right. And if you're looking for that email address, it'll be in the description below, just so you can have that, because sometimes I forget how to spell all that. It's quite long.
All right. So after all of this EV and different brands and stuff like that, essentially to all our viewers, why should you buy an EV? Give us a breakdown, really.
Well, I bought mainly because I saw savings immediately. I mean, a spreadsheet has no feelings. I mean, one of the most, like, to be perfectly honest, the most emotional purchase that you can make, besides if you're getting married, a ring or for someone,
a house,
would be a vehicle. Or house.
Vehicle?
It's a vehicle, right? Because the vehicle, when you put it out there, when you drive it, it's a reflection of oneself. To be perfectly honest, right?
It is true. It is true.
It's you out there, right? You're practical. No, you're flashy. No, you like big trucks. It's you out there. It's you on 4 wheels or you on 2 wheels, right? So I get that a lot of people are very passionate about this, or very, very, they get enthusiastic. They want to, get into. It's the same with other vehicles, even gas vehicles, Ford versus Chevy, like stuff like that. People get very, very passionate about their team, right?
Yeah.
So
true.
when it comes to EVs, it's like every team has changed somehow. Everyone's changed, right? So now people are looking at a technology that may not address all of their needs, right? Whether it's aesthetics, size, capabilities. There's not a vehicle for everyone yet as a direct one-to-one right now. I mean, think about how many trucks there are. The F-150 Lightning has not shipped yet. The only truck on the market right now is the Rivian. And that's in very, very, very limited quantity. Most EVs are either sedans, saloons, or estates, which are station wagons, right?
Station wagons, yeah.
So that's only going to help so many people out there get into the EV game. Not everyone's being taken care of. I get that, right? But for the people that are out there that are looking for vehicles that do fit them, then I would definitely take out the spreadsheet. It literally has no feelings. So I took out a spreadsheet. I looked at my mileage. I looked at how much I was paying for gas. I worked out everything to give me the discount on my EV, right? So when it was time for me to purchase an EV used, and this was like, I already bought my PHEV. We knew that would save us gas because our other vehicle was dying. When it came time to do the EV, I was fully prepared because I had all the numbers in front of me. So when I bought my first EV, which was the Bolt EV, and I paid back then, it was like $28,000. I'd already paid for most of it in the first year of ownership.
So $28,000 is quite cheap for an EV, but like you said,
cheap.
You've actually saved in terms of gas price and everything, and in terms of running the vehicle, in terms of insurance, in terms of maintenance fees, and all that kind of stuff. I think you've already saved on that. And you said you did that within a year.
Yeah, in Canada, and I can't speak for the US or other places, but in Canada, we're very much into environmental choices. So the insurance was cheaper because I bought from a third party as well as ICBC, our provincial provider, and they actually had discounts for green energy vehicles. So I saved a few dollars there. I also What about time? Well, I get to drive in the HOV lane. It's a privilege of owning an electric vehicle. So being able to go from downtown Vancouver all the way to Langley in under 35 minutes, if I need to, that helps me out because my kids are out there at school or activities, right? And the other thing too is the fuel costs and the maintenance, right? The fuel costs for my vehicle, when I was driving my SUV 7-seater, like V6, Kia as well too. It was the Sorento SX. I didn't really actually need that vehicle. It just seemed like the right purchase at the time. And most people overbuy their vehicles, to be perfectly honest, right? They'll buy it for that one time they need to tow the boat to the cabin once a year, right? The rest of the time, it's actually a liability because it's costing them gas and insurance. So I worked that all out, and I realized that, holy geez, I'm paying like $700 a month in gas in that gas guzzler. I have every year I have to have my oil changed. I have to have additional services. There's all this maintenance. The brakes can go every 48,000 kilometers, right? The brake service, like things like that, they start to add up. And it's been a little while since I've done those calculations, but already in fuel costs, I mean, that paid for the car.
Yeah,
it really did.
That's true,
right?
Do you think this EV is going to keep growing? What's your future kind of look on it? I mean, is it something that's going to be what's the percentage in terms of EV versus gas cars?
Gas cars?
What do you think? Yeah.
Well, in British Columbia, and this is based on some of the numbers that I pulled up just recently, but I think these were 2020, 2021 numbers, but there are 3.7 million vehicles registered in British Columbia, in total. So these are insured vehicles. There are 1.37% ish, roughly. So that's around 50,000 vehicles that are actually EVs right now on the road. So
still a low percentage, but if in terms of numbers, you're looking at 50,000 plus vehicles which are electric, around about 1 point whatever percent. So we've still got far to go.
We got a ways.
Yeah, but I think over the next 5 years, especially with so many brands producing their own electric vehicles, I think that number is always going to grow. And I've seen some models on some of the trade shows and internet and stuff like that. They're starting to release SUVs because SUV is a big market, right? And if you have electric SUVs up there, it's going to just blow up. So my wife drives an SUV. My other brother, for example, he drives an SUV. So imagine having an electric SUV. Once that's on the market, I think the uptake will be even bigger. Yeah,
I think you're right because, as I was saying earlier, it's all about having a vehicle that reflects the tastes and preferences of the person. Right now, not all of those demographics, not all of those psychographics are being met, especially in the truck space. That's why you have so many truck drivers in certain demographics. They're so upset because they're not being taken care of. And when you're not being taken care of, you get upset. Justifiably so, right? Justifiably so. I'm with you. You don't have to get so mad. I got it, right? It's not my fault. I got it. But, manufacturers still need to come up to the plate with good designs that meet those needs in this type of drivetrain. We don't have to get everything right in the first round, but we need to at least make the effort.
Right. So, what about our sponsors? Well, if you want to be a sponsor of the show, then hit us on the email. It's our podcast show at gmail.com. Of course, you can send us your questions if you're a viewer, and of course, leave your comments down below. Winston and myself, that's me, and Stephen will answer them when we can. Yes, sponsors, listen up, help us out, and of course, we will do the same for you.
And if you have an interesting product that we can review or talk about, send it over. Maybe that's the start of the sponsorship there. Right?
Yeah, great.
We're professionals. We can do it.
Right. So we talked about all the advantages of owning an EV. We talked about some of the brands that are up and coming with their cars and their vehicles. And of course, you talked about your experience about EVs and what your, the trip and how you go with your electric vehicles. So now let's talk about why you shouldn't get an EV. Of course, people want to know the disadvantages as well. So go ahead. What's your experiences with that?
Okay, so we know that there are a lot of financial advantages potentially, right? And we also know that the environment is really well taken care of because, let's face it, I mean, if you drive 20,000 kilometers in a year, you're probably using about, on an average vehicle, I think, what did I calculate it at? If you use 7 liters per 100 kilometers, that's the average mileage of your vehicle, you're probably using around 18 barrels of oil every single year. You're putting 4,800 kilograms of carbon dioxide into the air. Okay? So there's an environmental cost to driving a gas vehicle every single year. And this is on 20,000 kilometers, right? So not to mention the cost. There's also there's also the ability to go and do all the things like drive in the carpool lane, get the best parking. But you also have to look at the fact that, is it going to work for your lifestyle? We already covered one point, and that's that the vehicle, the way it was designed, does not match your lifestyle. It's not a representation of yourself. I mean, imagine a guy in a Dodge Ram getting into a Leaf, right? That's just weird, right? It's not the right demographic. He's not going to feel good about that. Cars are feeling products, no matter what we say, because it has to feel right. And right now, a lot of people are being underserved. They're not getting something that feels right for them. So if the vehicle doesn't feel right, I fully support you. Don't get it, because you're just going to feel like crap driving the vehicle, right?
Yeah, and it's not just the cost. I mean, it's part of your, like I said, your own image.
It's your persona.
Style. Yeah,
right?
I mean, even if it matches, for example, you know me, I like my luxury brands. I'm going to go get myself an electric Mercedes Benz, but that's going to cost me 150 grand. It's no way I'm going to afford that. But of course, if you go for the brands which are okay, drivable, and then it's just a matter of a taste. But the other concerns that you want to talk about also is the charging points.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't understand, like you said, level 1 charger, level 2 charger,
Yes.
They can get a bit confused. And
of course.
They buy an electric vehicle. Oh, how long do I need to charge it for? Do I only specifically look for level 2 chargers in this city, or level 3 is compatible with a level 1?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of not misinformation, but lack of information of trying to entice a lot of the potential EV drivers, right?
Yeah, I would 100% agree about is the lack of education. I mean, so many years ago, people didn't really know how to pump gas. You had an attendant. It was expected that the attendant would take care of you, right? We don't have attendants for charging stations. So we kind of skipped that step and assumed that people knew what they were doing.
It's like DIY for computers, right?
Exactly. So there's this entire phase where people are figuring out how to do these things. I mean, let me think back to when I was a new EV driver. I had never used a DC fast charger when I was first out there. I was actually so afraid of using a DC fast charger that I waited an entire month until I drove up to the BC Hydro station to try to charge my car. Right?
So you're just charging from home only?
I was just charging it from home. Like, I didn't have a level 2 yet. I was just using the granny charger, right? Because it was terrifying to me. It's high voltage.
A new experience.
Right? So
you're a virgin.
So imagine if someone, I know. So imagine if someone was standing there to help me, guide me through that at every station, like they did in the good old days of the petrol vehicles. There would be so much more. Oh, thank you. No, I didn't know that before. Like, there would be a lot more education, right? But there isn't. So right now, as it stands, and because I've gone through all the charging, I know what to do. I end up being the guy at this charging station. That people are like, excuse me, I don't know what I'm doing here. Can you help me out? Of course I'll help you out, right? Of course I'll help you out. And unfortunately, we have to rely on the community to help newcomers into the space, right? Because they're genuinely petrified because they might electrocute themselves, which doesn't happen. I've learned that.
That's true. People might worried about being electrified because, oh my God, it's raining. Yeah. Do I charge?
It's raining in Vancouver.
Charge. And I mean, that's one thing.
Right? So it's real fear, right? It's real fear because they don't want to get hurt. They want to break the car. They want to make sure that they're getting value from their charging session. And these are real concerns, right? I get that, right? I might be all about EVs, but I'm also not ignorant to the fact that we're feeding a completely different beast. So charging, education, availability, and also understanding of how these chargers work is very important. I mean, if you can't charge your vehicle within the range of your vehicle in your city, you shouldn't be buying an EV, right? Especially if I take for granted the fact that when I come home at night and I charge my vehicle, I plug in 10 seconds, plug it in, next morning, full. That's the dream. But for some people, that's not going to happen for at least quite some time.
Yeah, some people think, oh yeah, I'll just use the granny charger, not realizing that it's not the optimum or the best.
That's right.
Way of charging. So
yeah.
So education,
it does
here,
work.
Right?
It's slow.
And the other concern is range, right? Because people are scared. You're driving. Okay, especially in Canada, US, or any of the big countries where long distance driving is normal, it's natural. City driving, I think you're cool. I mean, city driving, you just pop from one wall to the next, or just maybe 20, 30 miles or kilometers, and you're never far away from a charging station, right? But if you're driving long distance, like your little trip in the Rockies, then you really need to plan. People need to understand where there's closest to the charger and what type of charger it is, of course, the different speeds. And the range, So your experience.
And thinking about that, you're bang on. Like when I was on Rogers Pass, which is like the highest elevation of the Canadian Rockies, that's 1,330 meters above sea level. When I was up there, I realized that I drove my electric vehicle up here, and I realized that most electric vehicles in North America have never been to a place this remote.
That remote,
right? Because I'm at the top of chargers left and right, of course, right? There's chargers there, but they've never been this remote. They live in the cities. I think a mutual friend of ours observed that some people driving Teslas in California, they sit there at the Target and they charge in the parking lot. I don't do that. I don't know if it's a California thing or not, but I don't do that, right? And I realized that, most people do the city thing, right? They're not ready to take this vehicle and push it to the limits like someone like I do. Right now, I'm perfectly confident that the major roadways in Canada will support me if I wanted to drive from Coquitlam, Vancouver, all the way to Halifax, Nova Scotia, or even St. John's, Newfoundland. I could do it. But the problem is that these major routes do not cover all Canadians. U.S. routes as well too. They knew the main routes that go back and forth from New York to California. They do not cover most people, right? People need to be able to travel where they want to travel, and I think it's fair to say that you are limited by the charging infrastructure right now. You are limited by the range of the vehicle if you need to go off course. And you are also limited by finances as well too. We can look at a vehicle that has sticker shock attached to it, right? Like the cost differential between the gas version of my vehicle, which is now just a hybrid, versus the EV version is almost $10,000.
Wow.
You get $7,500 back from the government, but you still have to make up that difference.
Here's a scenario. So imagine you're doing this long distance driving, right? And your car, the battery's almost low. You decided to hunker down onto, say, a local motel, right?
Yeah.
And they give you the option, hey, you could use the charger, wall charger with your granny charger that you're taking with you, but you're going to stay there overnight, right? 24 hours. So that is a possibility if you're low on charge. You could stay overnight, use the wall socket to charge up. Is that something that people don't realize you could do, or it's just something that you haven't even planned or even think about?
Well, I think that that those are one of the options, but it's not the optimum option, obviously. Of
course,
right? I mean, to have to plug your own charger, your own emergency charger into the wall is kind of like, I should really use this for emergency purposes, right? Also, my cord is hanging out there in the rain if there's no covered parking. So that's not really an really true solution either. The true solution would be to have fast chargers in more places where people can access them quickly and then move on. Having more chargers along your route where you can have a stretch, smoke break, or a coffee, and then move on and charge less, use less time to charge, maybe more hops, but you're going to get out of your car anyway, so you might as well just stop at a place where you need to charge. That's a lot more optimal. Or even increasing decreasing the charge times in the vehicles so that they're almost at parity they're almost at parity of you lining up at Costco to get into the queue to fill up. That's an average of 20 minutes, right? So if you can get in and out and charge in 20 minutes, you're probably fine. If you can go 20 to 80 for that. And that's true. And that's coming. That's soon. Most of the new generation vehicles can get from 20 to 80% in under 30 minutes or even less. So it really comes down to, how do I take care of the vehicle? How do I charge it? How do I get out there? Can it go everywhere that I want to go? And if it can't do all those things for you easily, then the EV's not for you, especially on price as well too.
Like a checkbox. Yeah, like advantages, disadvantages. If the advantages are more than the disadvantages, go for an EV. If the disadvantages are more than the advantages, then of course still with the gasoline. So,
because remember, a spreadsheet has no feelings. If you put all your data in there, it's going to generate a result. Either it's A, it's going to be for you based on the numbers, or B, it's not, or C, you just don't like any of the EVs out there, and you can wait, right? And prices will come down eventually, right? So, I might be pro EV because I love my vehicle, but I realize that there is a point where no matter what I say, you just don't love what's out there, and that's okay too, right? it happens.
Yeah. So on that note, I think I'm going to start reviewing an electric vehicle when we get one. When I get one. So I'll compare it with your one, see how it goes.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun to do a road trip and test things out. We could hit the chargers together. Oh, it's charging that fast, or it's charging that fast. Let's do a Top Gear Grand Tour Nation road trip.
Yeah, I mean, with your experiences, of course, and also some of the stuff you talked about today, it's actually convinced me. So I might go for it.
I think for you,
the price is okay.
Yeah, for you, because you live in the city, you've got chargers right across the street, man.
Yeah,
it's not like it's tough, right? You go to the gym, you do your run. You come back, it's already charged.
It's already charged. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Oh, cool.
So it depends, right? And I think it's a very exciting time because right now it's all the way back to the horse and carriages, right? The horse and carriage people. Oh yeah, I've got my peanut top hat and I've got my monocle, and I'm going to ride this horse. Well, no. Well, there's Ford putting out these funky petrol vehicles over there. That's the way to go. That's where all the new money is going, right?
Yeah. People are scared of new stuff, especially like, for example, we talked about last week's show when we talked about crypto. People are scared about that. It's the future. So same with electric vehicles. It's the future. Don't be scared of it. Ask questions with people who are already driven, who already own electric vehicles, such as yourself, Stephen. Of course, leave your comments. Ask questions.
Please.
Stephen will answer them. Anything to do with electric vehicles. And of course, you can hit us up on the email there. It's ourpodcastshow@gmail.com.
Yep. And the description will have that email address in case you forget it because it's quite long. So, Winston, where can people find you on social?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Winston Chim and also on Twitter at Winston Chim. Again, you could send me questions tech related, but not too technical. And of course, anything that's wearable. I love wearables.
Awesome. And I'm on Twitter at Stephen Fung and also on Instagram at Stephen Fung as well too. I am not the other Stephen Fung that does films in Hong Kong. Yeah. I have a doppelganger. I'm not him. Please stop inviting me to your Academy Award dinners and stuff like that. I can't come. I'm not that guy. You
have to give it a good slap.
Yeah.
Right? Give it a good slap.
Just smack that Twitter out of your mouth. Okay. But on that bombshell, thank you so much for joining us this week. Yep. This is a car show, so we're using the Top Gear clothes. We'll see you in the next one.
Until then, this is Winston and Stephen.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.